Have you ever taken advice from someone that was bad enough to get you into a lot of hot water? I know I certainly have. In high school, one night around midnight, me and a friend were driving home, and the sort of gas meter was just there on empty, and my friend said, hey, you know what, when a car is almost out of gas, you certainly have like another 20 miles or so before you actually run out of gas. So I took his advice, and sure enough, we ran out of gas around midnight, and I had to call my parents and ask them to come pick me up, and they were very, very unhappy about the whole situation, and I got myself into a lot of trouble. That's essentially what Jesus is talking about in the book of Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 through 20. And Jesus is going to tell us about how to spot good and bad advice from the people around us. And he starts off by saying this. He says, watch out for false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are voracious wolves. So I think it's pretty cool that the Bible actually mentions wolves and uses wolves as an illustration, because wolves are pretty cool. But it's also interesting that Jesus starts off by saying that those who intentionally or maybe unintentionally are out there, and there are those that may be possibly trying to deceive us. And so this becomes a sort of warning to us right off the hop. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, how do we discern whether information is good or whether it's bad? And it's actually quite simple, more simple in theory and actually harder in practice. And Jesus says this. He says, you will recognize them by their fruit. So really it becomes simple, that we can recognize good and bad advice by its fruit. But he also goes on to show us an illustration of what this actually means. And he says, every good tree bears good fruit, but the bad tree bears bad fruit. Thought number one, don't be an early adopter. Just because someone gives you information doesn't mean that you actually have to take it. Wait it out. See what the results are. See what kind of fruit actually comes from this advice before making any moves. Number two, get another opinion. Find someone else that you trust, whether it's a leader or a parent in your life, that can give you another opinion or another take on the situation. And check this out. In Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14, it says, where there is no guidance, a nation falls, but there is success in the abundance of counselors. So try to find as many counselors as you can. And three, my final thought for you would be, the Bible is your final guide. And check this out. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 16 and 17, it says this, every scripture is inspired by God and useful for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness, that a person dedicated to God may be capable and equipped for every single good work. So use the Bible as your final authority when guiding you between right and wrong.